This is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. Great investigative reporting by Wil Kinesche. He and I have teamed up in a vendetta of truth bombs that expose this taxpayer-funded child trafficking ring, and we are about to disclose all of this to my contacts in New York Police Department and the Medicaid Fraud Unit, where I have personal friends whose identity cannot be disclosed for obvious reasons. We are also forwarding this information to Melania Trump, who I am sure will be more than interested in what we have exposed so far. We see why the deep state is trying to take the president down. It is not only the pay-for-play extortion. What people, even the libtard social justice warriors, will understand and stand with us against is the wholesale trafficking of kids all across America. That will prove to be their ultimate demise. The following video and those which follow are reposted here and on all my social media with permission of Wil Kinesche, who has reciprocal permission to post my content on his channels.
Arizona elected official is in jail and charged with more than 60 felonies for allegedly running a multi-state adoption scheme. Prosecutors say Paul Peterson preyed on pregnant women from the Marshall Islands in the Pacific and lured them to the U.S. He allegedly promised them up to $10,000 to give up their babies for adoption. Nikki Batiste is looking into
this morning. There are about 17,000 foster kids in Arizona who are in need of homes right now. However,
child under state custody died from natural causes, and the caseworker didn't know anything about it.
He didn't know the sex of the kid, and he didn't know that the kid had passed away.
This is the Wil Kinesche Show, in search for truth and justice, with yours truly, Wil Kinesche. This episode is going to deal with the foster care system out in Arizona, and the map that I am putting up right now is the map that I saw, which got my attention in the state of Arizona. Then I saw another graph where there was over 19,000 children in the foster care system in Arizona. They had trimmed it down a couple thousand by the time the report came out that you originally saw. We have a social service caseworker blowing the lid on some things that's been happening out in Arizona. We have 81,000 people on a central registry dubbed to be unfit parents. Then they come in and take your kids, and there are two laws that have recently been put on the books giving CPS, foster care, social service people the legal authority to come into your house, take your children away without a paper being signed by a judge. We have a state senator looking for the 550 children that's missing that he says they are being sex trafficked that was in the foster care system. I have broken the figures down where over $1 billion in 1 year was given to the state of Arizona by the federal government with all the children they had in the foster care system. Another story I'm going to cover is a child 2 years old was taken out of the foster care system, and after some investigations they found that this particular individual was running one of the most prolific pedophile rings out of the state of Arizona. So when I saw that map, I knew there was smoke. Folks, there wasn't just fire, it was a big fire, and it is hot. So you hang on, because we got a lot to cover, and I am going to open your eyes on what's going on out in the state of Arizona and how they are abusing the foster care system. Thank you for taking your valuable time to watch my channel. If you would, like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification button after you hit the subscription, so therefore when I put more shows out, you'll get notifications. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support and the comments that you've been leaving below. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. Well, coming into the show, I had some video teasers. One was on this Peterson fellow who was an elected official. He was also an adoption lawyer. He ends up going over to the Marshall Islands, bringing over 70 women back into the United States, not only in Arizona, but a couple other states, giving them around $10,000, but selling the baby for $40,000. This is the sale of babies, folks. That's all it is. And he ended up getting arrested and convicted on multiple charges. So the teaser video that I showed you is not the whole story. So I'm going to let you watch the entire video of this, and then we'll talk about a little bit more of the videos that you saw coming in, and then we'll get into some of the snapshots that I put out there because it's very interesting.
Arizona elected official is in jail and charged with more than 60 felonies for allegedly running a multi-state adoption scheme. Prosecutors say Paul Peterson preyed on pregnant women from the Marshall Islands in the Pacific and lured them to the U.S. He allegedly promised them up to $10,000 to give up their babies for adoption. Nikki Batiste is looking into this story. Nikki, what did you learn?
Anthony, good morning. Well, so far, 13 families have filed a lawsuit against Peterson in the hope that their pending adoptions are completed legally and ethically. Peterson's alleged scheme involved more than 70 adoptions, where each family paid up to $40,000 for the process.
The commoditization.
Arizona charged Maricopa County Assessor Paul Peterson and his associate Linwood Jeanette on felony counts, including human smuggling, sale of a child, and fraud.
This case was.
So now we have this scumbag selling babies. He's now in jail. Then the other two videos that you saw in the intro coming in was one established in the fact, now this report had been put out a year later after they had whittled the number down from 19,000 children in the foster care system in the state of Arizona to 17,000. Then there's another one where a foster care whistleblower came in that used to work for CPS foster care system caseworker in Arizona, stating the fact that they were so in tune on keeping up with their foster care kids that this little child died of natural causes. The foster care caseworker on that case not only did not even know the child had died, but didn't even know the sex of the child. So we're going to see some more video of her because she really puts out a very good account of exactly how they go and investigate some of these children. So I'm going to play another video clip of her, and then I'm going to go over in detail about the numbers of the children and the money that is brought into the foster care system to the state of Arizona and how much it means to their state budget. Then we'll get on more to some more video clips and look at some more of these snippets that I have of some major corruption and aspects and screw-ups in the Arizona foster care system.
And during her time with CPS, she says she was shocked at the confessions her colleagues would make.
Drive-bys are when you literally drive by the house. You don't actually stop and you don't do what's called due diligence. There were a couple of workers that would say, do you actually go out and knock at the door? And I'm like, yeah. Well, I do drive-bys. And I'm like, what is a drive-by? Oh, I just drive down the street.
Well, this former Arizona CPS foster care caseworker decided to stay anonymous and said two things. One, the entry of the show talking about they're so in tune on what's going on, didn't even know a child had died or what its sex was. Then she goes on to find out that there are people in the caseworkers that don't even go to the houses. They do what they call a drive-by. Then they go in and make their decisions either on the actual investigation of a legitimate claim that their child is being abused or whether or not a child should be taken out of a home and put into foster care. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to show where when all this came out, they hung this around the necks of 5 very good seasoned foster care CPS caseworkers and blamed them for all this malfeasance and fired them. That's coming later. But right now, we're going to get into the numbers. And these numbers, folks, are staggering. So the map that I had put up in my introduction was a map of the United States, and it basically says that as the children being placed into foster care through the entire United States, the statistics were that was going down 22%, where the state of Arizona was going up 80%. So if you do that quick math, they were 102% higher statistics of putting children in the foster care system over 10 years. That got my attention. Then that's when I found where there was 19,000 children in 2016 in the foster care system in the state of Arizona. 19,000. Well, how did they get there? Well, here we are. In that year of 2016, for a solid 6-month period, I broke it down to 182 days. 5,669 children were placed in foster care in the state of Arizona. So if you break those numbers down, that's 945 children a month being put in the foster care system. That works out to be 31 children every day. And folks, that turns out to be one child every 46 minutes for a solid 6-month period was being taken out of their homes and placed in the foster care system. I even did the math over to the side so you could see the math, and I even put my reference down where I found that reference out on the internet in a report not to be disputed. What would motivate them to put so many children in the foster care system? Well, let's go over the overall numbers. The estimated average amount that the federal government gives each state, this is not just Arizona, for every child that's in foster care for 1 month, the federal government gives somewhere around $6,000. Arizona pays a little bit higher than the average state. They pay $650 to the foster care parents. So what does that leave? That leaves $5,350 left. So where's the rest of that $5,350 go? In 1 year, if you do the math, one child can bring in $64,200 to the revenues of the state of Arizona. One child, $64,200. With an estimate 19,000 children in foster care for the year of 2016, and you take that $64,200 and you multiply that out, that brings the number to $1.2 billion. The state of Arizona received in their bank account for the state $1.2 billion in the year of 2016 for all the children that they had in the foster care system. So you don't think it's motivation to legally kidnap children out of their homes and put them in foster care? It's all about the Benjamins, folks. It gets better. So I went and looked to see what the annual budget was for the state of Arizona, and it runs around $42 billion for 1 year. Well, $1.2 billion of that $42 billion turns out to be 2.9%. So the children that are brought into foster care for that year, that 19,000 children, actually made up 2.9% of the total budget for the state of Arizona. 2.9%. And with Arizona having a state population back in 2016 of 6,835,518 people, with the number of children in foster care, that is 1/28th of 1%. That's 1/28th of 1% of the entire population of the state of Arizona in foster care. That doesn't sound like a very big number based on millions of people, but I'm going to break that down for you a little bit better in just a second. And this 1/28th of the population and the money they bring in, the analogy would kind of be like taking a penny, cutting 1/28th off that one penny, invested into an investment, a year later coming back and you got $1,000 in your investment. Follow the Benjamins, folks. When you have 1/28th of a percent of the population that is non-productive citizens, not able to work, and they bring in 2.9% of Arizona's annual state budget, number one. Number two, the average mean income is $56,000 in Arizona. Some people make more, some people make less. But on that average mean income, unless it's been changed, it's 3.3% state taxes. That means that this person making $56,000 a year pays $1,848 into state taxes. If you divide the numbers out on the $64,200 that one child brings in annually to the state of Arizona, 35 working adults working 40 hours a week, 2,000 hours a year, pays taxes to equal what one child in foster care for 1 year in the state of Arizona brings in to the corporate or the state treasury. So financially, there's your motivation right there to get kids out of their homes into foster care. Now, after I show you this quick video clip of these 5 women that were served up and all this malfeasance will hung around their neck, I'll explain to that in a little more detail. Then I will move on into some of the other snippets that you saw about these 550 kids missing. The state senator says they've been moved from the foster care system into actual sex trafficking. Then I'm going to show you and go into details of a story of an actual foster care father who was a sex trafficker and got caught.
They were forced to keep quiet for months, but the 5 CPS caseworkers fired for failing to investigate cases want their story told. ABC 15's Navita Forgani spoke with these workers today, and Navita, they believe they should have never been fired.
That's exactly right, Katie. All 5 women tell me they were hand-picked to review cases that weren't getting looked at because of their years of experience in social work. And they tell me they were just doing exactly what they were ordered to do.
We really didn't do anything wrong.
5 CPS caseworkers standing by their work.
We devoted our lives to Arizona CPS, and this is the repayment that we get.
These women say it was widely known that cases were not investigated.
It wasn't hidden, it was discussed, so why would anybody lose their job?
Documents from the DPS investigation reveal the NI process was developed in 2009. These workers claim they were using standards already developed.
Given the fact that we had hundreds of reports just sitting out there, nobody was looking at them, nobody was going out on them, it was absolutely critical that there be a process put into place to review each and every one of those reports to ensure that our workers were getting out on the most critical cases.
And making sure children did not slip through the cracks.
The very first time we had to mark a case as not investigated, that's something you put a lot of thought into, and you just hope that you are making the right decision and that this is not a child that we're leaving in an unsafe situation.
But when the practice of labeling cases as not investigated became public, an independent team reviewed the cases and found more than 540 at-risk children had to be immediately removed from their homes.
We know for certain that a good number of the children removed were not from reports that we had done,
claiming these cases had been reviewed by other CPS workers.
The picture being painted out there is that the 5 of us are responsible for all 6,600 cases. That's untrue.
There are people that are still in the agency that have put their names on NIs and nothing has happened to them.
A 6th person was fired. Deputy Director Sharon Sargent was a high-level CPS official, but no one else in the department has been disciplined so far. And as for Director Clarence Carter, he still maintains that he's had no knowledge that cases were not being investigated, which is something these women dispute.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if there's more to come on this. Thanks, Navita.
From dangerous people. As ABC 15's Adam Slinger tells us, the man in charge of CPS just called the current environment inside his own department toxic.
Child Protective Services is under the microscope, and now the top boss knows his employees are feeling the pain. Clarence Carter sent out this email after dozens of his staffers anonymously voiced their complaints. He writes, "The environment is toxic." Talking about...
And there is an easy way you can help. If you live in Arizona, you can claim a tax credit for up to $1,000 for your donation to Generation Justice. Wait, you mean I can make a charitable donation to help abused children and write it off on my taxes? Yes. As an Arizona taxpayer, you can donate up to $1,000 to Generation Justice and receive a full tax credit. It's really simple.
So here you have 5 very dedicated, seasoned, experienced caseworkers in the foster care system out in Arizona, and they get fired. And they got fired because all this malfeasance that had come to light was hung around their necks. They were actually told to go out and investigate these tough cases. And when they came back in to investigate these tough cases, whether it was an actual legitimate complaint on a family of child abuse, or going out and investigating children already in the foster care system that they dubbed should not be in there, they turned around and fired them. And later on, I didn't leave it in the article, in the video, I don't think, but they actually went and found a sixth one. So this was their way of getting out those folks that was doing the due diligence job of actually making effort to get children out of the foster care system. And I slipped the next snippet in where the head of the foster care system, CPS, Department of Health and Human Services, whatever you want to call them, it's all one and the same, was getting all these emails from the employees in the foster care system and social services talking about how bad the environment was. And he, in his own words, said it was a toxic environment. And then the last snippet that I put in was the state of Arizona, through the Department of Social Services and Child Protective Services and Foster Care, went and teamed up with this organization to go out, and they literally, after all this going on and all this had come out in the news where they're firing people for doing their jobs, they got children dying and the caseworkers don't even know they're dead. They got information coming out where caseworkers were just driving by the houses and then going and making the decisions. You see all the numbers of all the money. After all of that, they had the audacity to put a commercial out on TV begging people to donate $1,000 to the foster care system. Put that one in your pipe and smoke it. Now, on this article snip, we have David Farnsworth, who is a state senator out in Arizona. He discovered that was 550 children missing out of the foster care system. And he comes right out and exposes the truth and says they're being sex trafficked, period. Well, right after he did that, he was actually threatened by another member of the Arizona State Senate. They threatened him to the point where he called the police and had him arrested. And either he didn't care or he didn't get the memo. But I just did a show where not one, not two, but 3 state senators who were bringing out the corruption and the sex trafficking in the foster care system ended up dead with a bullet in the back of their heads. So if you haven't seen that, you might want to go track it down and find it, because it will open up your eyes that people have died in a political realm trying to bring out the corruption of the foster care system. So this guy right here obviously didn't care or didn't know. But once again, these 550 kids that come up missing, he swears up and down they are being sex trafficked and they're missing from the foster care system. Well, guess what? That brings us to Devani, this 2-year-old little girl who was taken out of her home because she was in a bad environment. They trumped up charges on her parents, put her in another foster home, and within no time she ends up in the hospital with 1st and 2nd degree burns, and in some case 3rd degree burns over 80% of her body from scalding water. They go do an investigation and come find out the scumbag that they put her with, who was a foster care parent, was not only molesting her, but he was running one of the most prolific child pedophile rings that has ever been in the state of Arizona. She was taken out of her home and literally put in a pedophile's household where he was arrested and convicted, and he's going to jail for a lot of years. One of the children that had previously been in his foster care, this scumbag, who he raped and tortured over many years, has filed a $15 million lawsuit against the state for allowing it to happen. So don't think this doesn't happen. And that's going to bring me to this little snippet here where there is a class action lawsuit against the state of Arizona right now for all these people who have been legally kidnapped, taken out of their homes, put into homes where they were actually in worse condition. They were neglected, abused, sexually abused, and trafficked, and now they're coming back and they're putting together a class action lawsuit against the state, and it's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars when they get done. Just to explain how a class action lawsuit works, usually when you have 1 or 2 people, you go get 1 or 2 lawyers, each one of them, and they are represented in court. When you have so many people coming against the same entity or group or company or state, in this case, or state agency, instead of 40 or 50 or 100 people getting 40 or 50 or 100 lawyers, they go get one law firm, they wrap it all up in one big package, and they present just one case on the behalf of those 40 or 50 or 100 people. That's what a class action lawsuit is, and that's what's happening right now in the state of Arizona. So since I have so many many more video snippets to show you, so many more articles to profile, so much more information to give you on what's happening and going on in Arizona as far as the corruption, how they're using the foster care system, and the sex trafficking or the legal kidnapping of children out of homes. This is going to be Arizona Foster Care Part 1. Part 2 is coming, and I'll probably have just as much, if not more, than I just gave you here. But I think I've wet you whistle quite a bit on this first half. So that's all we have for the day. I want to thank you so much for taking your time to watch my show. Like, share, and leave your comments down in the bottom. See what I can do to improve my show and bring you content that you're interested in. Hit that little notification button when you subscribe so you'll get more of my shows in the future. This has been In the Search for Truth and Justice with yours truly, Wil Kinesche, on The Wil Kinesche Show.
So you can feel the sound.
Please subscribe to our backup channels, Net4Truth USA 2 Patriot channel, BitChute.com/net4Truth USA, and drop.space /@Net4Truth USA. We fly so close to the target, we are on our 5th fighter jet. We will be relentless and persistent until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/net4truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.